Oh, video games. They come in so many forms. In the past, I've reviewed games you could play on your TV and games you could play on the interwebs, but the purest childhood gaming experience for me came from the consoles. Back in the early 2000s, there were so many good options. The PlayStation, PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, and let's not forget the classic handhelds like the Game Boy. Personally, I was a PS2 kid, but a lot of my friends had the other consoles, and I have fond memories of them all. It was the golden age. But over time, I'm afraid all golden ages must come to an end, and as these systems fell by the wayside, with the newer, more powerful consoles like the PS3, Xbox 360, and the Nintendo Wii coming along, you began to see less and less games being made for these quote-unquote inferior consoles. And it made me wonder, what were the last ever games for these classic childhood consoles in my neck of the woods? Are they obscure games that people have completely forgotten about? Or some hidden gems that command huge respect? And just how much will buying these games annihilate my bank account? Well, the truth is a bit of a mixed bag, so let's get stuck into the last games ever. That is, the last games on the systems I owned in my childhood in the UK, because that's where I'm from. Hopefully I've covered all bases there, so if you're looking for NTSC or Japanese stuff, click away now before you get disappointed. First of all, we have to go all the way back to the good old Sega Mega Drive. I can't believe I still have this thing. It was a hand-me-down from my cousins, and it was my first games console ever, so while all the other kids had a shiny new PS2, I was stuck on ancient technology from 1988. And I wouldn't have it any other way. The Mega Drive was an amazing console. You just look at it and go, yeah, that's a games machine. I'll never throw this thing out. I might do more of a deeper video on the system in the future, but for now, let's take a look at the very last Mega Drive game released in the UK, FIFA Road to World Cup 98. Yeah, everyone's favourite game, right? To put this in perspective, the Mega Drive was launched here in September 1990, and this game came out 7 years later in December 1997, just in time for Christmas, I suppose. Now, by that time, you could play this exact same game on the original PlayStation and Sega's successor console, the Saturn, so just how outdated is this version? Let's take a look. And just to preface here, I know nothing about football. I was more of a skating kid, but for the purposes of education, this is quite intriguing. I always appreciated that flashy EA Sports style. Not that I have any reasons for saying that. First of all, these games are just a mess of options. Like match-type fouls, injuries, offside. I don't know what any of this means. I guess I'll just pick Road to World Cup, since this game is based on the 98 World Cup in France. And I swear, I don't even plan this. This video literally just happened to coincide with the World Cup. Now what's this? CONMEBOL? CAF? It's hard just getting past the menus in these games. I'll pick UEFA, I've heard of that once. Okay, let's choose Wales. And now what's this? Playing game? Do they just randomize all this stuff? I bet it's calculated so I have to play the hardest possible team. Well, it's Wales against Belgium, and here's the game. This is what you had to settle for if you wanted a Mega Drive football game. It's sort of an isometric perspective to mimic 3D, which is ambitious, but there's no commentary, and all you can hear is the roar of the crowd. Sounds like 16-bit sound chips crying out for mercy. Now, what even is football anyway? You just get the ball in the net, right? Well, it isn't long before that happens, and of course the opposing team is the one to score. It's definitely not me, put it that way, because the control in these games is awful. Your player runs like a wet bar of soap. I feel like I'm sliding all over the place. There's no opportunity for precision, and who knows what the combo controls are, because the giant instruction manual for this game has more words than the Bible. The whole first half was just me bumbling from one place to the next, trying to get the ball anywhere near the net. But I think I'd have a better chance of winning the World Cup in real life. To be this good takes ages. Thousands of ages. Oh, and then in the second half, the game crashed. Well, you know what? Good, because this game sucks. For our next game, we're moving on to a handheld system, the Game Boy, and the last original UK Game Boy title was V-Rally Championship Edition, released in July 1998. V-Rally was a big deal on the PS1, so big even my dad played it, but how does it compare in Game Boy form? Well, first of all, we have to figure out a way to record this handheld gameplay, and that means breaking out the Game Boy Player. What is this thing? Well, it's an attachment for your Nintendo GameCube that allows you to play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games on your TV. It's ridiculously expensive because you need this boot disc so the player will work, but I just love doing things the original pure way, so that's how it is. That said, I have a massive soft spot for the GameCube, and clicking this tower together is just the icing on the cake. Okay, the Game Boy player is all ready to go, but it's probably wasted on this game. You can pick a licensed car to choose from, but does it really matter with graphics this limited? Once you've picked your car, you get to race, and I'm pretty impressed by how they attempted to make it look like 3D racing. It's really an illusion though, since you're not actually moving, and it's more like everything else is moving around you. The draw distance is so bad though, it's extremely difficult to turn without crashing, and it's not like the handling is any great shakes either. I suppose you'd have to play the course over and over again until you know it off by heart. And what is this stage anyway? You're driving through a Sonic Special stage that sucked in the Roman Colosseum? Well, while this game did try to be ambitious, it just ends up as a dull experience. Onto the Game Boy successor, the Game Boy Color, our next game is Hamtaro Ham-Hams Unite. What a title. That puts Avengers Assemble to shame. This was the last ever game made for the Game Boy Color over here, released in January 2003. Just like the Game Boy ended the black and white era of gaming, this one ended the color era. Well, not really. This game is based on some sort of anime that I've never seen in my life. I think it might have been on Fox Kids at one point, and I remember seeing toys in Pound Stretcher, I think. But for some of you, I'm sure Hamtaro was up there with some of the all-time great franchises, like Saint R Wars or Dr. Agam Ball Z. Now, let's focus on the game. Wait, Ham Jam? What's that? Well, apparently it's some kind of soundtrack player, and you can make these hamsters dance to the theme song. How novel. As for the main game, you're the edgy hamster fuzzball schmuck Hamtaro. Your hamster friends, or ham-hams, which I guess is the terminology for this show, have gone missing, and it's up to Hamtaro to find them. At first, I didn't know what to expect with this game. Maybe a side-scroller? But no, it's more like an RPG, sort of Pokemon-esque. You walk around the area talking to the other hamsters, and learn words to gain abilities, like dig for digging. I suppose they have their own language? There's no enemies in the game either. You just walk around, make friends, and enjoy the scenery. It's the happiest game ever. But I don't know, maybe this fits the tone of the show? Do Hamtaro fans even like this game? Someone has to clue me in here, because the lore of this world completely eludes me. Well, guess the only thing to do now is commit Ham Die Die. That's actually how the show ends. Next up, we're checking out the original PlayStation with FIFA Football 2005. Yeah, it was pretty common for sports games to be the last games. Released in October 2004, this was the final PlayStation release in the UK, and as you can imagine, the game was available on every other system at the time. I guess this version was for that one bloke in Essex who couldn't afford a PS2. Also, don't you find it weird these games are named for the year after they're released? It's like they're always living in the future. But this game is stuck deep in the past. It feels weird even seeing the year 2005 on this game. In PS1 terms, that meant yesterday. This game is packed with features that I'll never understand, like team management and transfers. I guess if you're a football nut, you can keep track of all this stuff, but it's no good to me. The soundtrack is ace though. Well, time to pick a match, and I'm going with Stabæk? The jury's out on this one. Yeah, watch the players come out. The graphics are clearly updated here from FIFA 98 to reflect the superior power of the PlayStation.
We're off and away here, Ali.
As usual, these games are a struggle for me. Within seconds, I got booked by the ref. Come on, ref, that was a bad call. You should be sacked, you idiot. I know I suck at this, but this time I'm really trying. Come on, just get close to the net. Yeah, goal!
Scored! Now it begins.
Yeah, I finally scored! I actually scored in one of these games! Come on! Look at this, I'm doing it! Come on, go on, son! Yes, come on!
They put it away!
Ole, 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 ole! I did it! I won! 2-0! 2-0! I finally won a match in a football game! Come on! Moving on, I'd say this is a superior game to the primitive Mega Drive edition. The fact I can actually win a match is a testament to that. I mean, that's the first time that's ever happened in my life. So, therefore, FIFA 2005 on PS1 is the best football game ever made. Now, one thing I would have liked to do is pick up the last UK game for the original Xbox, which just so happened to be Shaolin Showdown, based on the Cartoon Network show. It was released in June 2007, almost 2 years after the Xbox 360 came out. But the game is so rare, I doubt I'll ever lay my hands on it. Apparently, this game was released here in an extremely low quantity, and it fetches a ridiculous price online. Like CEX has it listed for £550, so I say screw that. It's a shame, because I was a big fan of this show as a kid, but honestly, at that price I think it would be easier to find a real Shengong Wu. Now we're getting even deeper into the childhood timeline with the GameCube. Only just outlasting the Xbox, the GameCube's last ever PAL game was Ratatouille, based on the Pixar movie. I can't quite claim this was the last ever UK game, since it was never released over here. Apparently, there was also a GameCube version of Surf's Up released on the exact same day in the UK, but I can't find it listed anywhere on eBay, so the rat will have to do for now. Instead, this is a French version, which is oddly appropriate for the film when you think about it. Well, I can't understand what anyone is saying, but at least we can play the game. I've only seen the movie once, so I can't remember if it follows the film accurately, but at least the classic voices are there.
Alors passe la seconde et récupère ces trognons de pommes avant qu'elle se réveille.
Poetry. So you play as Remy the Rat, and it's your standard 3D action platformer. Normally, this type of thing is right up my street, and Remy actually controls quite well. The problem is the level design isn't too inspired. You can climb and jump around, but your only real goal is collecting apple cores. Was that even a thing in the movie? The platforming is pretty basic, and sometimes you're not even sure what you're supposed to jump onto. It's also hard to figure out where you're meant to go. Like, I got stuck in this attic looking for these apple cores, and everything's so dark, I didn't know where to look. Like, am I meant to jump onto this thing? That thing? Climb these walls? There's no linear order to it. What do I do? This game is dull and duller. And just to make things even worse, Remy takes fall damage. Yes, fall damage in a 3D platformer. I didn't know that the first time playing, so I died by accident, and we're treated to this video of Remy dying slowly on the floor. Sleep well, kids. Time for our last trip to a handheld, with the Nintendo Game Boy Advance Super Pro Entertainment System. Oh, the amount of times I had my face glued to this thing on holiday. I can't ever part from it. And it still has this old Doctor Who sticker on the lid. My brother did that. The last game released for this tiny treasure was The Legend of Spyro: The Eternal Night. Released in November 2007, this was during Spyro's blue period, and he never really recovered, certainly not on home consoles. Honestly, this was one of my least favorite PS2 games ever. A long, frustrating mess. But is the handheld version any better? Let's see. Well, it certainly mimics the pleasant fantasy art style of those years, and Spyro goes to sleep when you pick the options menu. Even he's tired of this system. This game follows more or less the same story as its console counterpart, but it's more of a side-scroller. Basically, Spyro goes into the time vortex, and this is where the magic happens. They do try to emulate some of the ideas from the console games, like Spyro having combo moves to beat up the bad guys, which is actually pretty satisfying. Feels good to thwack those ruffians right in the face. You can fly, glide, and even wall jump, so Spyro feels quite good to control, and getting the ability to blast fireballs is just awesome. The only problem is the levels are very maze-like, so it takes time to figure out where you're supposed to go. But on the whole, I'd say this is a fun game, probably the best we've played so far. In fact, I'd go far enough to say this is actually better than the console version. Yeah, it turns out Spyro's natural home for this time was on the handheld system, and to be honest, it's not a bad swan song for the Game Boy Advance, a system that thrived on side-scrollers. So, Spyro and me, we're alright. Finally, we'll cap off our marathon with the very best console of them all, the PlayStation 2. Fat or slim, this one just can't be beaten. Now, the PS2 had a longer lifespan than any of the consoles we've talked about in this video. It was released here in November 2000, long before the Xbox and GameCube, and outlasted them until years after they faded away. So, the last ever game for the PS2, released all the way in November 2013, was Pro Evolution Soccer 2014. Yeah, bit of an anticlimax. And let me remind you, this came out in November 2013, 1 week before the PlayStation 4. Cosmic. You can tell this one was the last PS2 game because the back cover is so basic. There's barely any features listed. Is that an omen? Well, the game requires a ridiculously large save file, so I guess it must be stuffed with content. It's almost hard to believe I'm playing a PS2 game from 2013, but here we are. The theme song here is classic. It's like a catchy Carnival type thing. There are so many game modes here, I'm not even sure what to play first. Master League just sounds daunting, so we'll go with the Champions League, which is the only thing here I recognize. Credit where it's due, they actually have that banger orchestral theme song, which just reminds me of my dad watching this on TV while I was playing with rocks on the floor or something. I always liked how it was sponsored by PlayStation as well. That was like the only thing I could relate to. Okay, let's pick a team, and I'm just going with Man United, because that's the only team I'm even vaguely aware of. Visually, the graphics look mighty fine indeed, which shows how far the PS2 had come over the years. And isn't this just the perfect metaphor for my experience with football? Visuals over substance? I was always more interested in the sponsors on the side of the pitch than anything going on in the match itself. Like, see? PlayStation. There's accuracy for you.
The atmosphere is absolutely fantastic.
So it's Man United versus Celtic FC, and I'm going to do my best to scrape out another win. Just need to get to the net. Come on, come on. Yes, yes, yeah!
No, it's an own goal.
Wait, what? That was my own team's goal? You could have warned me before the match started. Oh, what a plonker. All I can say about this game is it's a lot more technical than the others we played before. It's extremely hard to score a goal. Like, even when I was right by the other team's goal, the ball would just fly over the top of the net. What gives? Oh, but when I went to score my own goal, the game's like, yeah, go right ahead, loser. This game was just a total embarrassment. No matter how hard I tried, I could not get the ball in the other team's net. But then again, it's not like they managed to score either. Yeah, we just ambled about like useless wastes of space until time ran out. Good thing I set the match time to 2 minutes a half. Well, the game ended 1-0 for Celtic, and to be fair, I was the only one who managed to score a goal against my own team. Honestly, this probably isn't a bad game if you're a hardcore football fan, but for me personally, I prefer the games I can actually win without humiliating myself, which is the norm for this episode. That said, the graphics and sound are excellent, and even though I would have preferred the final game for the PS2 to be something less predictable, you have to give props to Pro Evo for being the sole survivor to cling on to this amazing system. For that honor, I tip my hat to you. So that's it for the last games ever. Well, the last games ever on my childhood consoles, but that title would just be a mouthful. It was certainly a fascinating experience. Yes, a lot of those final games were sports titles, but it's still interesting to see how they played. The downside, of course, is that because so many of these late releases are super rare, they won't just burn a hole in your wallet, they'll roast your entire wallet into ashes. All in all, these games cost me a whopping £413.83, so if you see me begging on the streets this weekend, you'll know why. But huge costs aside, it's still amazing to me how many of these games were released long after people had moved on to other systems, and that's the beauty of coming back to them after all these years. Because if you were the type of kid who could only get a new system at Christmas, or your birthday, or your family just didn't have that much money, you could always rely on these trusty old consoles as your very best virtual friend. So what did you think of these games? Did you own any of them yourself? Let me know in the comments, but for now, I'm out of lives.